Hi, everyone. Today I have a very special guest. David Davis is my special guest today. David was actually one of my former accounting students at Santa Monica College. He took my Principles of Accounting 2 class in fall of 2013. And after he finished his class at Santa Monica College, he then transferred to UCLA to major in economics as well as minor in accounting. David is actually someone that I've kept in touch with for all this time because he was someone I mentored, and I mentored him ever since he took my accounting two class, and he did a great job. So it was just someone I really connected well with. So when he transferred to UCLA, I actually asked him to be my teaching assistant there. So he was my teaching assistant for my intermediate accounting two class at UCLA. So during college, David actually interned for the global CPA firm, the global Big Four CPA firm, Deloitte. He interned both in their Los Angeles office, as well as he had the opportunity to intern for them internationally. So he interned for their Melbourne, Australia office for one summer. Thus, when he graduated from UCLA, he signed on to work in Deloitte's Los Angeles office in their tax practice. Currently, David is a tax associate at Deloitte. What's great about David is that he not only did he achieve a lot personally, he really loves to give back. So he's actually come back to both Santa Monica College and UCLA to talk to students to inspire them to work hard and to strongly consider a career in accounting. So David, thank you so much for taking time from your busy day to come speak to my students to do this video.
Yeah, of course. Thank you for having me. I'm definitely happy to be here and excited for the interview.
Let's get started. My first question for you is, as I mentioned earlier, you studied for Santa Monica College and then you transferred to UCLA. And as I said at the beginning, you did a really great job. And that's why you were someone that I mentored and I connected with all this time. But when when you and I talked, I remember back in 2013, you told me that you actually had some challenges, right?
Mhm.
So can you share with my students what were some of the challenges you faced while you were in college, and ultimately how did you overcome them?
Yeah, so definitely have my fair share of challenges in school, like I'm sure many other students have nowadays. I had to work two jobs at the time, so I was working in Sherman Oaks, going to school in Santa Monica, and then also working in South Bay, which in Torrance. So you can imagine the commutes that I had to make, how early I had to get up, and how late I had to stay up on a given day. Also, with me working, my family struggled financially, so having to make sure we had necessities around the house, helping my mother and my little brother with whatever they needed at the time. So things could be a little turbulent and rough. Also, when I just started college around spring 2013, my little brother became very ill. He was diagnosed with type 1 diabetes. So we really had to kind of change our lives to help him out and make sure he had all the things that he needed. And, overall, everyone's going to be hit with certain challenges in life. I think, the thing is you have to stay focused, understand that you still have certain goals that you want to achieve, build a plan, and work towards those goals. There are always going to be challenges. So I just had to, roll up my sleeves, make a plan, and fight through.
And I want to add something to your response, just to let my students know. I mean, you never, when you were my student, you never mentioned anything about your challenges. You always did your homework on time. You did really well in your exams. The only reason I was even aware that you had certain difficulties was later on when I was mentoring you, we were just having
Mhm.
casual conversations, and that
Yeah.
I was able to just pull that from you. With you, you always had a smile on your face and just a strong sense of focus.
Mhm.
So, I feel bad that even I mentioned this, but I just wanted you to share this because um, I know there are students facing challenges today, but the fact that you were able to overcome them, I hope you're able, by what you said, you're able to inspire them so they can be able to achieve what you did. Moving on to the next question. You made really good grades, both at Santa Monica College and when you were at UCLA. So can you please share with my students What are the keys for high academic achievement, especially for accounting classes? I mean, people usually know accounting classes are difficult. So what are some tips to doing well in accounting classes?
I think the first thing is being engaged and asking questions. It's not always important to just know the actual answer, but it's important to know how you got to the answer. So having, that knowledge is really what's important in those type of classes, being able to apply the methods instead of just getting to the answer. I would say being consistent with your study schedule, even if things seem easy at the time, don't, take shortcuts. Make sure you're putting the time in, you're consistent, you're comparing notes with your peers, you're asking your professor questions, you're going to office hours. There's a lot of resources in college to tutoring, different programs where people meet up and study halls, math labs, you name it. So I think it's really about, putting in the effort, and making sure you're staying consistent and you continue to try to improve.
In addition to academic success, uh, you have an even more impressive outside of the classroom success, in personal opinion. You've done a lot of outside activities. Can you share with my students what are some of the other things you've done? I know you mentioned that you work, right? But what are some of the other things that you've done outside of the classroom?
Yeah, I really thought it was important to be a little bit more well-rounded, especially while we're in school. I mean, we're in class all day, so I think it's important to do some other activities. I was in supplemental instruction, which is basically like a TA. I did that at Santa Monica College, where we basically help students in subjects that they found challenging. So we built lesson plans, we tutored, we allowed students to actually build lesson plans for other students. So that was definitely a cool program I was happy to be a part of. I also TA'd at UCLA with you, which is a pretty cool experience. Also, I worked in VITA, which is preparing income tax returns for less fortunate people. That was one of the more rewarding things that I think I've done over my college career. Also worked in Toastmasters, which is a program that helps with their public speaking. I grew up very introverted, so that was definitely something that helped me get out of my shell. And then I interned, as you said, I interned in Los Angeles as well as Melbourne, Australia, which was an incredible experience. Sometimes I still can't believe that I got to do that. Growing up, I never thought I'd be able to travel the world at such a young age. And just to have that experience and looking back at it now, I'm just forever grateful.
Yeah, and I still remember this is a few years back that Deloitte, which again is I believe the largest CPA firm in the world, gave you the opportunity to intern in Melbourne, Australia. And what I want to mention to my students is that they paid for your airfare, they paid for your housing, your food, and you also had a chance to work on some top clients. So that's just a wonderful experience that Deloitte provided for someone like yourself. That's great.
Yeah, definitely an amazing program. Again, super grateful that I got that opportunity, and you know, uh, happy it was me.
Cool. So you were a high achiever when you were at both Santa Monica College and UCLA, but you told me one time to my amazement that you were not always this motivated. When you were in high school, you told me that you were a C student. You made some C's, which I was completely blown away and shocked by. So can you tell me what changed you? What changed you from a C student in high school to be a high achiever in college? How do you change that mindset? How do you go from being an average student to a high achiever?
Really, that's a really good question. I guess my perspective and my focus changed. When I started high school, I was in a new environment. I was a little uncomfortable. I didn't really take school seriously, as serious as I needed to. So my first 2 years of high school, I was very average. Didn't really study much. Didn't really think about college or anything like that. And the summer going into my junior year, I lost my grandmother. And I think, going through that experience, it put a lot of things in perspective for me that tomorrow's not promised. So, I always take that with me, that tomorrow's not promised. So if I'm not giving 100% every day, and if I'm not putting all my focus into my work, and if I'm not trying to get better, then that opportunity may not always be there. The fact that, my grandmother didn't get to see me graduate or be on honor roll or those type of things, or get to see me travel the world, that will always stick with me. But that also motivates me to keep going and keep trying to achieve new levels. So my little brother can see me do those things, and I can do certain things for my mother and things of that nature. So I think that experience kind of lit a fire under me and allowed me to change my perspective on things.
Great advice. Great advice. Thank you for sharing that. So I have one last question for you, and that is, this is this is gonna. I think my students will be very interested in this. You actually graduated from college 100% debt free. So that is something you don't hear about too often, right? In the news, we keep getting blasted about how students today are coming out of college with hundreds of thousands of dollars in debt. So can you share with my students your secret to graduating from college 100% debt free?
Yeah. So
Oh, let me interrupt you real quick. And I want to add, this is coming from someone you didn't come from a rich family, right?
no,
You
no.
even told me that you were helping out with your mom. So please, sorry to interrupt, but please go ahead and share the secret with my students.
To be honest with you, Professor, there's not really a secret to it. I think it's all about um, having a plan. We hear all these things about, college debt. Some of us are put in situations to where we have to take a few loans, but there are things that you can do to, mitigate those and borrow less money and things of that nature. For me personally, it had to do with I took advantage of all the financial aid. I probably applied to 20 to 30 grants every school year. I worked two jobs when I was in community college. I also did internships during UCLA during the summer. So just budgeting, really having that goal in mind that I wanted to be debt free. And once I start my career, it wasn't, I wouldn't be worried about paying debt, but I would be worried about building for my future. So I would say, really sit down and you have to plan things. Goals without planning and without actions don't always pan out. But if you have a goal and if you plan to meet that goal and if you actually do the actions within that plan, then a lot of times you'll meet what you need to meet and you'll be able to achieve what you need to achieve. So, yeah.
Okay. Oh, great. And I hope people will take your advice to heart. So thank you very much.
Thank
Well, great.
you.
Hey, David, those were all the questions I had for you. Thank you for taking time from your busy day to come do this video with me to share your words of wisdom with my students. So, I usually tell my guests that I look forward to catching up with them in the near future, but we've always stayed in touch. So, yeah. So I guess we'll hopefully get a chance to have lunch sometime soon. And now that you're working, right? I used to pay for your lunches. That it's time for you to treat me to lunch sometime.
Yeah, definitely return the favor. Thank you for having me. And I just look forward to seeing you soon.
Okay, thanks. Have a great day.
Bye.